My answer is when you see something that your child is excelling at, I would pour gasoline all over that fire. Hello, everybody.
Good morning.
Hello, Grace Yoon.
Hello, Kurt Johnson.
Hello, producer Chris.
Hi.
Good to see you guys. Man,
Amazing to see you both.
It's so good. It's good to be seen.
I'm glad you feel seen.
It's good to be seen. Well, where that comes from is a couple of years ago, I was down in the church, like in the office lobby.
Okay.
And I saw this older gentleman. He was probably 80, so he was an older
Yeah.
guy. And I said, I didn't even know him, but I was good to see him. But
Yeah.
I just said, hey, it's good to see you. And he goes, well, at my age, it's better to be seen than viewed.
Oh,
I was like, well, you know what? You got a point.
he's a funny man.
You got a point. So
man.
it's good to be seen
To be
today.
seen. You're still seen, Kurt.
Yeah. The day
You're
will
not
come.
being viewed right
not
now.
being viewed. So, well, thank you, everybody. Some of you are viewing us on YouTube, and we
That's right.
appreciate that.
Yes,
thank
we
you for
do,
joining
very
us.
much.
Others are listening, and we are in episode 2 of our little series that we're calling School Year Strategies.
Yes.
As we kick off a brand new school year, we thought it might be encouraging to just hand you parents just a few little strategies.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we talked about last episode. There's thousands of strategies when it comes to
Oh, my
school
goodness.
year. And strategies,
Parenting.
Yeah. The strategy to help my kid do their homework on time. The strategy to help my kid quit getting in trouble for talking too much. The strategy to help my son or my daughter navigate the French, and the strategy after strategy after
Yes.
strategy. And so we certainly don't want to overwhelm. But I think sometimes as we navigate these important strategies during the school year, we might, I know I certainly did all the time, we almost neglect maybe the most important strategies to being parents and helping our kids become interdependent, lifelong followers of
There you go.
Jesus who want to make a kingdom contribution. And if you missed last episode, we actually gave some strategies around that. Strategy 1 for this little series was to be purposeful
Yes.
in your efforts to raise interdependent, lifelong followers of Jesus who want to make a kingdom contribution.
Yes.
If you're listening to this podcast and you're not yet a Jesus follower, I would still say go back and listen to that, because I think there's stuff in there that applies to parents of faith and parents who aren't there yet. And
I think so. Absolutely.
Today, we want to talk about the strategy of paying attention. Whoa. Hey. Thank you.
I didn't know
Thank
there
you,
was a
producer
studio
Chris.
audience here
See,
with us today
Well,
that can turn off and turn off very quickly.
that's producer Chris's way of saying, "Hey, I'm here, guys. Don't forget about
Pay
me.
attention
Exactly.
to me.
Pay attention to me, guys. I'm not on camera like I like to
He
be.
wants to be seen,
he
too.
He wants to be seen.
Not viewed. Don't view him. See him.
I was so proud of us for jumping right into the topic and not getting sidetracked, as we so easily do.
We do get
It just
sidetracked
felt
easily.
weird.
But
It felt like
here
we
we
were
are.
moving too quick.
Well,
He was like,
We
slow
needed
it
to
down.
slow down a
I
little.
wondered if anybody noticed.
How efficiently we went into the
Because it wasn't,
intro.
it wasn't intentional. I just kind of found myself.
it.
No, I don't even know if
In
I
the
felt
zone.
it. I
you're
all the-
so excited about this topic
there's some of that.
that you want to dive
all
right
of,
in.
All of a sudden, there we were, and I was like, oh,
We're here.
okay. So Chris, thank you. Thank you, producer Chris. I do feel the need to make sure people who might be newer to our audience, because this crazy little podcast is growing like crazy. It's not even a little podcast anymore. It's a little bit bonkers. We just crossed the 50,000 YouTube subscribers, which doesn't include...
We're being seen.
We're being seen. And that doesn't include people that listen on iTunes or Podbean or wherever you listen to podcasts. It doesn't include those people. But people who are new might hear us, mostly me, but I'm going to say us.
Okay.
But mostly me, give producer Chris a hard time.
Oh, right,
We
right,
tease
right.
producer Chris.
We don't tease producer
Well,
Chris.
I said I'm gonna lump
Oh,
us
okay.
in.
This is what you're looping me into.
I'm
Got
looping
it.
you
Got
into
it.
that. But we love producer Chris.
Oh my goodness.
He's one of our best buddies. We work together. We're on the same ministry team.
He's so talented.
I've known producer Chris for 15 years or more.
Wow.
In different.
See, this is why you tease him, though, right?
Yeah, I don't know why I did that.
15 years, it's been like 30 years, almost 30. No, it's probably
No,
been,
that's
it's
not
been
true.
like 30 years.
That's not true.
We met in 95 and
But we didn't know each other.
So you're counting
true.
the
We-
knowing.
we were
Yeah.
acquaintances.
We were like ministry acquaintances in different churches.
Like you knew the name.
Yeah,
You
we
knew
would,
the face.
We would see each other at activities or whatever, but
Right.
we didn't know each other.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Anyway.
everybody, we love producer Chris.
Yes.
And we will tease him and we will
We.
make fun of him and we'll give him a hard time, but we love him and he's a great guy and he's one heck of a podcast producer.
He is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So way to go.
absolutely. Yay.
So today, our second strategy number 1 of the series was being purposeful. Strategy number 2 is paying attention. Paying attention. And specifically today, we are going to encourage parents in the hustle and bustle of the school year to pay a little extra attention to 2 areas in your children's lives.
Yes.
Pay attention first to areas where they're struggling a little bit. They need some encouragement. They need a little nudge. And then the second is to pay attention to the opposite. Pay attention to where they're excelling. Pay attention to what's going right. And we'll talk a little bit about why both of those are important and just some thoughts around that. So concerning paying attention to where your children are struggling, Grace, why don't you take it away?
Yeah. And I really like these 2 ends of the spectrum because I think sometimes as a parent, based on our personality, you may latch on towards one more than the other. And I just think it's great that we are going to talk about both and paying attention to both because it creates that balance. So in terms of paying attention to an area of your child's life that needs a little encouragement, one of the things I would say is to look for areas that's not just about academics and schoolwork. Because when you do start off at school, your teachers are going to be giving progress reports and are they in the advanced class? Are they in the regular class? So it can be very easy to get caught up on like, hey, did you do your math homework correctly? And that's not bad. I mean, you do want to pay attention to how your kids are doing academically and support them and help them. But and if that's the area where you want to pay attention, I think that's great. I think that's wonderful. The one thing that I'll say that I'm personally paying attention to in my life as my kids are going back to school is just some of the ways that they are exploring their, I guess, self-esteem and their identity. Because I'm noticing with a 4th grader and a 7th grader, just everything seems to kind of come back to, am I lovable? Like at the root of it, are they looking at me because I'm weird? Do they accept me? What do they think? What does the teacher think? What do my friends think? Like, do I have friends? I think it all, like, they're not articulating it this way, but the way I see it, it all comes down to the foundation root of, am I okay? Do I belong? Am I accepted? So I'm seeing little bits of places where they come out. And one tip that I've been trying to practice with them is, let's say there's an area where there's hyper focused on what other people think. Like, I did this action and I kind of feel embarrassed about it. And I think they might be thinking this of me or they might be thinking that of me. I heard someone give the advice to say, in those situations, ask your child, well, what do you think? Well, what do you think about yourself? Do you think that was like really like egregious or terrible? And the answer your child gives may be, yes, I do think that was embarrassing, or no, actually, I don't think it was that bad, but what if other people think it was that bad? But the encouragement of asking your child, well, what do they think this person's advice was, is it helps them focus back on their own identity.
Yeah.
And not just having their own thoughts about themselves be so dependent on other people.
Well, can I interject?
Yes, absolutely.
And forgive me if I'm interrupting you, but because I think the additional benefit of that is
Yeah.
it gives you as a parent like a barometer of how well they're perceiving their struggles.
Yes.
And then you can gauge your response, because the reality is there might have been a fairly serious misstep.
Right.
And if their response is, well, I don't think it's a big deal, that helps you know as a parent how to go after it.
Yes.
If their response is, oh, I recognize it was a big deal. Okay. That now you can adjust your response and your
Love
coach.
that.
It gives you a barometer of how are they feeling about it.
Yes, that's good. And part of it is it's data collecting, like versus
Exactly.
reacting.
Yes.
And also, I think the last thing I'll say on that is, depending on what they say, if it's an appropriate situation where they are being harder on themselves, like I've had a few situations with Zoe where she's super hyper focused on like situations where she feels embarrassed or shame, like everyone's looking at me.
Right.
So part of it is like trying to get her to really understand, like, was everyone looking at you? Did everyone really care about what you were doing at that moment?
Yeah.
But when I ask her, a lot of times she's like, no, actually, I don't think what I did was that embarrassing. And I agree with her. But
Right.
in the situations where maybe they do feel really low and they are feeding that back to you, it does give you the opportunity to anchor them in, okay, not just what do you think about yourself, but what does God say about you?
Yeah.
And it does help us anchor in first, what do you think about yourself? But then are you grounding what you think about yourself on what God says about you?
Right.
And helping them kind of push back at this age of so much of their identity being based on just their friends' opinions,
Right.
their parents, their teachers' opinions.
Right.
And it's coming at us like a tidal wave.
Yeah.
And I can just feel it. Like it's just pounding against their
Right.
own questions of their identity.
Yeah.
And so if I can help them pay attention to what are your thoughts about yourself? Are they grounded in what God says about you?
Yeah.
Are you being perceptive? Are you
Yeah.
aware and having that adjustment as a parent on how we react to that? I think that is one way I'm going to be trying to pay attention.
That's good. That's great. My thoughts would be, parents, as you pay attention, here's a few strategies that might kind of help you keep in mind. One would be, as you pay attention, don't minimize stuff. And what I mean by that is, sometimes your kids are struggling with something that in your mind is so small time. They wake up with a big pimple and they're freaking out. Right? Or they have a bad test and they're freaking out.
Right.
Right? Or something, they're having a falling out with a friend at school and they're so devastated.
Yeah.
And because in their mind it's like, my whole social standing, I'm going to be alone tomorrow. They start
the end of the world.
spiraling or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's really tempting. And I don't think it's because parents don't want to spend the time. I think parents genuinely, in hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah.
So as a 35-year-old parent or a 40-year-old parent or a 30-year-old parent, you know that a big pimple doesn't really matter. You also know that your friendships come and go all the time
Yeah.
when you're a teenager. And they go through ups and downs. And it really, today's little argument with your best friend probably isn't going to be as devastating as you think.
Right.
You know as a parent that if you fail one pop quiz, it doesn't really affect where you are 15 years from now.
Right.
So it's very easy to go, hey, what's the big deal? Come on, get over it. Come on. Hey, don't worry about it. And when we do that, what we're saying to our kids is, my mom and dad don't understand my world. They really don't care. They don't feel for me. And so I would encourage parents, as you're paying attention and you see these struggles, to force yourself to not minimize them. Recognize it. In this moment, for that junior high guy, that big pimple's a big deal.
Yeah.
Go there. Just go there. And don't let yourself minimize it. As you're paying attention, don't maximize it. Many parents fall into one of those two. Where by nature, I was by nature a minimizer.
I see.
Buddy, get over it. Come
Yeah.
on. Seriously? Rub some dirt in it. Shake it off. Make a new friend.
Toughen up.
Toughen up. But a lot of parents, this is where the phrase helicopter parent, tiger parent, mama bear,
Yeah.
like those kind of phrases,
Right.
right? It's because some parents take in some ways, an overly aggressive response posture to every little struggle their kids are having.
Right.
They intervene in every situation. They fix every situation.
They stress out.
They stress out.
About the, the bad test
Yep.
grade.
They stress out. And what that does is it communicates, whoa, everything's a big deal. And the other, I think, bigger negative is you take away your child's ability to develop resiliency and problem solve on their own and advocate for themselves and stick up for themselves. And yes, when your child is 6 or 7,
Right.
you got to pay more attention to that. But if you are, as a parent, responding and diving in and overreacting with a 13-year-old the exact same way you did when they were 6, what was appropriate when they were 6 is no longer, what was
Right,
helpful when they
right.
were 6 is now harming their development when they're in junior high. So that would be my thought as we pay attention to things where we see our kids struggling. What do we do when we see our kids, we notice something where they're excelling?
Yeah.
We see something that's going right. We're paying attention. We go, oh, check that out.
Wow.
Whoa.
Tell us, Kurt. What do you do?
You want me to go?
Yeah,
Okay.
you go.
My quick answer, and then I'll give a story that I've shared once before, so longtime listeners will have to bear with me. But my answer is when you see something that your child is excelling at, I would pour gasoline all over that fire.
Love that illustration.
Pour gas on the fire. Where that imagery comes from is a parenting epiphany, a parenting moment for Rachel and I. Several years ago, our son Cole was a senior in high school. It was early in his senior year. He might have been a junior. I think he was a senior. And he always struggled with grades.
Okay.
Super duper classic kid, super duper smart. Just didn't like school, came across in our eyes as lazy academically. We knew, he's probably not going to go to college. Is he going to graduate from high school? Just that kind of great kid.
Yeah.
Great kid, just could care less about school. And I went to this local smoothie shop owned by one of the members of our church. And I'm ordering my smoothie and he says, man, I've been following Cole on Instagram. My son was this like they all were back in the day, into photography.
Okay. Yeah.
But he was okay. He had a separate Instagram page dedicated to all of his photography as a high schooler. And this church guy goes, man, I love following Cole on Instagram. Man, he's great. He's a great photographer.
Oh.
And so I say, oh, well, yeah, that's good. But man, I sure do hope he can get an A. And I hope he can find a way. And he goes, well, why? And I said, I don't know. So he can, graduate from high school?
Yeah.
Well, why? "Oh, I don't know, so he can go to college? Well, why? I'm like, I don't know, Mike. This guy's name is Mike. I don't know, Mike. So we can be a contributing member of society? You're like, what do you want?
Yeah.
And he goes, hey, Kurt, what if instead of putting all that pressure on your son to do all those things, he goes, look how good he is at photography. He said, why don't you pour fuel on that fire and see what happens? What if the emphasis, all the effort of trying to straighten this stuff out, if you put that same amount of effort in pouring fuel on this little fire of his?
Yes.
It almost brings me to tears all these years later talking about it, because it was just this, it was this Holy Spirit gut punch. And I went home, I said, Rachel, I think we need to pivot our strategy.
Wow.
And so we went to Cole and said, hey, we've been feeling like our responsibility is to get you to graduate from high school, to get you into college. And the reason for that is we want you to succeed in life.
Yeah.
And I said, but what we really want to do is just help you. We want to be a launching pad so you can succeed in whatever it is that you want to do.
Right.
And so we want to help you with photography. And so we talked about that and we put some things in
Wow.
action. And he graduated from high school. He went to college. He dropped out of college. And now he makes a living doing photography and videos and motion graphics.
And quite successful. Quite reputable.
And it's like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
Really, everything changed, at least from our parenting. I think that a lot of that would have happened either way, but the pressure that it took off of Rachel and I and shifting our perspective. So parents, I would just encourage you at an age appropriate, whatever it is, whenever you see these things that they're excelling at, what would it look like to just pour a little bit of gas on that, to encourage it? And this is going to be more, I think, for dads than moms. But dad, sometimes what your son or daughter is interested in, what they're even kind of good at, is stuff that you don't understand. You're an athlete, they're not. You are an academic, but they're not. They're more artsy or whatever it is. And we have a tendency to try to start a fire over an area that we think they should be into.
Right.
And, it's kind of like that, you're like rubbing sticks together. Why won't this fire start? Why? And there's already a little fire burning over here.
Yeah.
Dad, like, pour gas on it.
Yeah.
It's okay if your son doesn't play sports.
Right.
It's okay if your son doesn't want to be an architect like you want to be. He's not mathematic. Okay, who cares?
Yep.
What's he good at? Where's there a little bit of fire? Pour gas on the fire.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. I mean, not much I can really add to that. I think you just, what is it? Hit the
nail on the head?
Nail on the head, or knocked it out of the park. I love everything that you said. What I'll add to it is,
did I knock the nail out of the park? Is that
I
work?
think you did. You knocked it all out of the park. I think just to add on to what you're saying is, when we do that as parents, when you actually affirm something, when you pay attention and you affirm something that is actually part of their gifting, they know the difference between that versus just getting a compliment that seems just like, oh, you're a nice person, that is a little bit maybe generic or not specific to them. I've noticed this with my kids is when I see them and affirm something that they already, maybe they can't articulate it, but innately know, yes, I am good at this, or I know what you're talking about because I know that I relate to your compliment. There is some energy there and some like fire to the fuel, fuel to the fire. And I think talking about our last episode, when we can do that and encourage that, you mentioned at one of our purposeful, intentional encouragement of our kids to explore their giftings. I do think that helps them become kingdom contributors because it feels just right and great and energetic. And so the only thing I'll add to that is, I think this is so important. Paying attention, articulating your support, affirming what they're good at, because they really hear it. You may not think that they're really paying attention to you because sometimes they'll be like, yeah, whatever.
Right.
And the one example I'll give is, so my kids play basketball at a club, and we were driving there to a game, and we played like some random motivational video. It was just like, pump you up for the game. And this video was like, why is the lion the king of the jungle? It's like, it's not the fastest animal.
Right.
That's the cheetah. It's not the biggest animal. That's the elephant, and all of this stuff. And so it's like, so the lion could be like, well, I'm not the fastest. I'm not the biggest.
Has the best hair? Is that why the lion's the king of the jungle?
That could be. The lion does have great hair, and but the video that was saying like it's the lion's mindset. It's saying like when the lion comes into the room, these other animals that are faster and bigger will cower to the lion because the lion commands the room. Not necessarily with like the physical attributes alone, but with the mindset. I mean, that was the video, all this stuff. So anyway, we go to the game. Zoe's playing, and Zoe plays one of her best games ever. Like, she's being aggressive. She gets baskets. We're like going crazy watching like, our little fourth grader. And then afterwards, we're like congratulating. We're like, how, like you did such a good job. And then like quietly, she'll be like, yeah, like during the game sometimes, like when people were defending me, like in my head, I went, roar. and we just got such a crack out of it because we had already forgotten the motivational video by that time of the night. And we were just like, whatever, we're just moving along. But they really pay attention to what you say. Kids pay attention whether they show it or not. They really absorb. And when you can pay attention to their strengths, like you said, fuel to the fire. And my last thing I just wanted to throw in there too is one of the things Sam and I are trying to be really intentional about doing is encouraging, paying attention to, and affirming their effort, not just the outcome.
Right.
Because they can be naturally good at something and still struggle.
Yes.
And sometimes some kids, my first kid more, when you feel the struggle, it doesn't feel good. You feel inept. And it's just easier sometimes to back away from that thing that you're actually gifted in, have a natural talent in. So anytime we have the opportunity to be like, wow, that was really hard, but you didn't give up and you totally missed all those baskets, but I'm glad you took the shots because you need the practice in taking the shots, and affirming the action of moving towards your goal and using your talents to turn them into strengths that you can use consistently is something that we're that we're trying to be intentional about.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm only going to add one quick thing, and that would be parents, when you're paying attention, especially when they get things right, would be like catch them doing something good and call it out.
Yes.
Hey, I noticed you took the trash out without mom asking you.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Thank you. Hey, I noticed that you were super kind to your little sister tonight when she was, she was having a moment, and normally it bothers you, and we all know it bothers you. And tonight, man, you responded like really kindly. Thanks for that. So catch your kids doing something good along the way. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us this little 3 episode series on Strategic School Year. Episode 1, if you missed it, is on the strategy of being purposeful. We just talked about the strategy of paying attention. We hope you'll join us next episode when we talk about the strategy of praying for our kids. It's going to be fantastic. As always, text 83,000, the word parent or parents, either one will get you there. You can visit us at onpurposeparents.com. You'll see all of our resources, so much more stuff there than just the podcast. And then, as always, if you have a question or you would like to suggest a show topic, you can email us at parents@saddleback.com. Parents@saddleback.com. Share this podcast with a friend. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit like, hit subscribe if you haven't, and we will see you next time around.
Bye, everybody.